Hello guys, what's up? Simon here from Simon Mastering. Today I want to show you some tricks and tips about stereo placement in your track. I have loaded up a track from my last album, Simon Attitude is Everything, where I did some nice trick on the stereo image and I'm gonna show them to you. But first, before we're gonna dive in, I want to talk about stereo placement in general. And what's very important about stereo placement in your track is maybe the first thing what comes to your mind when we are talking about stereo image is how do you create huge stereo effects and stereo lead sounds, and how can you go crazy with them. And while it's nice to know how you can create huge stereo leads, I'm going to show you a method later here. It's always very important to understand that when we are talking about a good stereo image, that we also need contrast in the stereo image, which means if you have one sound and it's going crazy in the stereo image, it catches all your attention. And since our ear only can focus at one thing at a time, you shouldn't go too crazy about stereo image or about stereo effects in your arrangement. And instead of having too many elements which are moving around in the stereo field, it is more pleasant to the ear if you place each element in your stereo space on one certain spot. And for this example, I want to start and show you the drums, how I did the drums here. Okay, so for the drums, I always have I have a snare, I have 2 or 3 different hi-hats, I have shaker, and I have something like a drum loop. And what's very nice, for example, it always works, is have the snare centered, have the closed hi-hat, for example, also centered, then have the shaker, pan the shaker a little bit to the left, pan hi-hat number 2 a little bit to the right. So for example, I think here there's one hi-hat. So this hi-hat I pan 40% to the left. The shaker I pan 40% to the right, so that they are playing in the opposite space. Then I have the snare, let's see. The snare, usually the snare, I would advise you to keep it more centered, but here it's okay. It still appears a little bit to the right, but it still appears mostly centered. Then the loop has also some stereo effect. And just by panning the hi-hats and shakers and rides and whatever a little bit in the stereo spectrum, you create this nice stereo space. And while it's better to do it this way, I would say, instead of, for example, panning hi-hats while they are constantly moving from the left and to the right, because the thing is, if you get too crazy with these effects, it catches your attention. And while this catches your attention, it's good to have the attention from the listener on the main lead sounds. So now let's have a listen what it does. This is in stereo. This is in mono. And you simply hear how everything opens up. It simply opens up the space, the stereo space, and at the same time, it's not too irritating to your listening experience that it catches your attention while things are moving crazy from the left to the right. So I always would advise you to pan your drums in this way. And the next thing I want to show you is how I did the bass line, because I did a very nice effect on the bass line. And what I did on the bassline, you hear that on the click on the bassline, there's a stereo effect. If I mono it out, you can hear the difference. Now it's centered. Now it's stereo. And I'm going to show you quickly how I did this stereo effect here. So for the bass line, I splitted the bass into the low frequencies, just with an equalizer like this. And it's centered, of course. Then I split it in the mid frequency. It's also centered. And for the high frequencies of the bass, for the click, there is the stereo effect on it. It's just this frequency range here between 3 kHz and 6 kHz playing. And what I did is I applied a doubler effect on the high frequencies of the bass line. And I used waves doubler here. It's a pretty cool effect to make it pretty quick. And what the doubler effect does is you simply copy the signal to the left and to the right, and then you delay it here about a few milliseconds. Here I delayed the left side about 9 milliseconds, the right side about 23 milliseconds. And I can give you a very useful advice while you set up the delay time of the doubler. Listen in mono, because there's always, if you center the effect, there's some phase issues happening, and in German it's called the Kammfilter effect. There's some effect occurring where it's kind of flanging, and it's always best to set up the delay times of the doubler effect while you are listening in mono. Because if you find a sweet spot while listening in mono, it will also sound best in stereo. So this is a really nice method. And one note is don't get too crazy on it, because as I said, it catches your attention, and you always must see if it's good for your arrangement or bad, because if you have too many crazy lead sounds going on, it maybe is better if you center the bass line completely, because that you have the contrast. And for the last thing, I want to show you also one method how you can create a very great and huge stereo leads. And for this method, it's the same technique like doubling a track. I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. Just create a very easy pattern here. So. Maybe try this here. Okay, here I have a mono lead sound, and it sounds pretty boring at the moment. And now I do some filter automation on it. And now what we're gonna do is we duplicate the track here and made another filter automation here. Simply delete the old one and make another filter automation. Whoops. Okay. And then what we're gonna do, we pan the one track to the right, the other one to the left, and then let's hear what's gonna happen. And now you hear how the lead sound creates this crazy stereo effect. It's very wide, it sounds awesome. And while you can do different filter automations, what you can also try, for example, if you have a melody, something like this. What's also nice is if you copy, for example, the lead, and then you simply make a small adjustments to the melody. For example, just move the notes a little bit around that they are playing a little bit different, something like this. And then you also have these small variations on the left and the right channel, and that's very nice. Then what I also would do to process it nicely, you can also, for example, EQ it a little bit different. For example, on lead number 1, make the low cut on 150 Hertz. On lead number 2, make it on 250 Hertz. And then what I also would do to process it nicely, I would route both tracks in a group so that you now can process them, not that now you have them as one fader and as one group here. And then you can apply some effects to it. I don't know, some distortion, some equalizer on both to, you know, to glue them a little bit together. And apply some reverb, for example. So. And that's how you can create really nice and great stereo lead sounds with this technique. What I also used, for example, if in my chill out music, when I create ARPs, I simply duplicate the ARPs and use different presets or different sounds for them, and then pan them a little bit to the left and to the right, and then you can create really, really nice stereo effects. So I hope this video helps. If you want to book a mix critic session or have a one-on-one coaching, please check out my Calendly link. If you want mixing and mastering work, check out my homepage www.simonmastering.com. If you want to see different topics, please let me know in the comments, because I don't want to create videos which are in my mind. I want to create videos what you want to know. So please let me know, what are your problems, what do you want to know, what are you struggling with, and let me know in the comments, and have a great day. Bye bye.